Oh, man, it's Friday. Love it. We made it to the end of the week, and you know what that means? It means it's the end of the week, which is good enough as it is. Got the weekend coming up, but it also means it's time for the Morning Pitt Mailbag here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I say it every week. I mean it every week. It's the truth every week. This is my favorite Morning Pitt of the week because you guys give us the topics. You ask the questions. We answer as many as we can right here on the Friday edition of the Morning Pitt. We put up a post on Tuesdays. Usually Tuesdays. Sometimes I've forgotten it has to go up on Wednesdays, but we put up a post on Tuesdays on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. Say, give us your questions for this week's mailbag. You guys post a bunch of questions. You come up with a bunch of interesting topics for us to talk about. And then we swing it right in here to the Morning Pitt Mailbag on Friday. We answer as many as we can. And so I think this is usually my shortest preamble of the week because why am I going to sit here and bother with it? Let's jump into it. Take your questions here on the Morning Pitt Mailbag. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's the Friday edition of the Morning Pitt. It's youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. You see the website below, Panther-Lair.com. The Pitt site on the 24/7 Sports Network where you can get all the Pitt coverage you can possibly handle. Pitt football, Pitt basketball, Pitt recruiting, Pitt transfers, Pitt training camp, Pitt NIL, Pitt revenue sharing, Pitt non-conference scheduling, Pitt freshmen who will play, Pitt optimism, Pitt everything. It's all at Panther-Lair.com, and we provide the coverage for you all day, every day. Well, we provide the coverage for you every day. I can't say we have a new article coming out every minute of every day or anything like that. We typically put out 4 or 5, 6 pieces of content every day to give you stuff to read and watch and think about. And then the message boards that really are active all day, every day. It's the best online community of Pitt fans you're going to find. Right there at Panther-Lair.com. Pitt fans getting together on the message boards, talking to other Pitt fans throughout the day. I always say we provide the content and the coverage. You guys provide the communication or the community and the conversation. Sometimes they get those mixed together. But it's the best part one of the best parts of the site, I think, is the message boards. It's a lot of fun, and it's only going to get more fun as the season starts and we have games to talk about. For now, it's just all training camp coverage, but we'll have games to talk about soon enough. 2 weeks from tomorrow, right? It's coming up fast. So make sure you check it out. And then, of course, the YouTube channel right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com is a place to get all the Pitt video content, Pitt football, what do we have? We have Morning Pitt videos like this every day of the week, Monday through Friday, our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. We have post-game shows, press conferences, interviews, practice highlights, all kinds of video content right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like this video and subscribe, and that way you won't miss out on any of the Pitt video content, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So we had a few questions left over from last week that I want to get to. And because we had some good questions, and I didn't get all the way through the questions last week. So we're going to start with the few that we had left over and then move on to the questions that came in this week. And the first question I want to go to from last week, it's something we've talked a lot about this week, actually, but I figure we can put a bow on it. We actually did a whole Morning Pitt episode on it. But MJP31 asked last week, as of today, which I'll say is now today, which of the true freshmen do you expect to not redshirt this year based on preseason expectations of what you've seen in camp? Now, we did a whole episode on true freshmen who will play this season, guys we don't expect to redshirt. I kind of gave you 5 names and ranked them in order of least likely to redshirt to maybe not most likely, but most likely among that group of 5. I think they've all got a pretty good chance not to redshirt, but some are even less likely than others. I would say the 2 at the top of the list for me right now, I think, in terms of guys who are unlikely to redshirt, almost guaranteed not to redshirt, provided they stay healthy, is Ja'Kirian Turner, the running back, and Josh Gurrier, the safety. And those guys, I think you're going to see early and often, again, provided they stay healthy. They're going to stay they're going to be out there early and often. Turner's going to be the number 3 running back at worst. I think he's going to make a lot of plays for this offense this year. He's explosive. He's a good player. He's been here since January. And so he's going to be out on the field a lot. The depth situation is going to force that. You have Desmond Reed, you have Juelz Goff, and then you have Ja'Kirian Turner, basically, and he's third guy in line. And because there's not a lot, the other 2 true freshman running backs are hurt. They're not going to play all season. Jalen Williams came in as a transfer from Western Carolina. I'm not sure. I don't think he's above Ja'Kirian Turner or any of the other guys in the top 3. And so Turner's going to be out there just by virtue of being the number 3 running back. But it's not going to be just because of depth that he plays. I think it's because he can actually help the offense, and I think he'll make some big plays. And then Gurrier, like Josh Gurrier right now, I'm expecting he'll be on the 2 deep to open the season. He'll be a true freshman on the 2 deep, which you don't see a whole lot, particularly on defense. I don't think you've seen that very much over the years in the Narduzzi era. Jordan Whitehead obviously was a starter in 2015. But you don't find many true freshmen showing up on the depth chart. And I think Gurrier is not going to only show up on the depth chart, but he's going to be out there and he's going to play. I think he's going to play in every game. I think he's going to play on special teams. I think he's going to play in the defense. And I think he's going to be really good. Like, he's got a chance to maybe be the best safety on the current roster. Maybe not right at this minute, but like talent-wise, I think he's got a chance to ascend to that level. And ultimately, for all the great safeties they've had here over the last 10 years, I think Josh Gurrier has a chance to play himself into the upper circle of that group, which is a very good group. I mean, you think about the safeties they've had: Brandon Hill and Eric Hallett and Donovan McMillan and Paris Ford and DeMar Hamlin and Jordan Whitehead. I mean, like, dude after dude after dude after dude, all the way up to like now with Javon McIntyre and Cruz Brookins. I mean, they've got good safeties. They've had good safeties, and I think Gurrier has a real chance to be at or near the top of that list. Maybe not like the number one safety in the Narduzzi era. Jordan Whitehead's going to hold on to that title for a long time, but I think Gurrier can work himself up into the top 5 and potentially even go higher than that. I think he's going to be just that good. So those 2 guys I'm probably most confident about, again, provided they stay healthy. That can always throw a wrench into the plans. I think Tony Kinsler, the wide receiver, is probably going to play a decent amount. I think Sean Lee, the cornerback, has a chance. And who knows? Maybe you'll see Mason Heinschel out there. Can he get more than 4 games in the regular season and burn his red shirt? I imagine they'll try to avoid that. But if they come into a situation where they need to replace the starting quarterback due to injury or whatever, I mean, I would give the freshman a look. But that's just me. So, we did talk about that earlier this week. I figured we would come back and re-emphasize it just one more time and go through it. PGH Sun J 1325 says, and this is another topic. Again, this question was asked last week, but it ended up being a topic we talked about a lot this week. The topic of optimism. He says, if you had to give one new reason to make fans more optimistic than they have been about Pitt so far, what would it be? And vice versa, if you had to talk a Kool-Aid drinker down, what would you tell them to bring them back down to earth about this team? Well, a reason for optimism about this 2025 Pitt team, I would say this. I think you look across the starting 5 of the offensive line. I think there's a real chance that this starting 5 can be better than last year's starting 5. And, then you add in the depth with, at least one of those guys at left tackle, either Kendall Stanley or Jeff Percy, providing experienced depth there, and then some young, maybe unproven linemen providing some of the depth at some of the other spots, but the guys that the coaches are excited about and think have a bright future. And that if that line can play at the level it's capable of, Eli Holstein's going to have time to, I think, regain the form that he showed in the first 5 games of last season. And if those things happen, and there are some indications that maybe the coaches feel like they're heading in that direction, if those things happen, then this team can be really dangerous. I think we feel relatively confident about the defense. We'll see about the wide receivers, the tight ends, but all of those guys do better when the quarterback is playing at a high level. And I think there's a real chance that Eli Holstein will. I mean, we've seen him play at a high level. Like, this isn't just projection or guessing. We've seen Eli Holstein play at a really high level, and I think, there's no reason to think he can't do that again. And if he does, the receivers will be elevated. The running backs, I think we know, are going to be really good, and this team will have a chance to win a lot. Now, vice versa, what would you say to the Kool-Aid drinkers? Well, I would say that, Ryan Baer, B.J. Williams, and Lyndon Cooper were part of an offensive line that struggled last year after basically one injury threw the whole thing into upheaval. Keith Gouveia made spotty starts on his resume at Richmond. Jeff Percy only started 3 games at Michigan. Kendall Stanley started every game at Charlotte last year, but he started at right tackle. Now he's playing left tackle, and they're shuffling him left tackle and left guard. Gouveia is getting time at left guard and center. They're moving guys around. The depth is not all that experienced outside of either Kendall Stanley or Jeff Percy. And the reality is that while Eli Holstein played great for the first 5 games, save for the first 40 minutes of the Cincinnati game, he also didn't look so hot against Cal. And, Syracuse, he was just okay. And definitely didn't look good against SMU, so some cracks were starting to show. And I don't think it's just a given that they're going to repair those cracks and he'll look like he did against North Carolina or at the end of the Cincinnati or West Virginia games. You need a lot more consistency out of him, and you need him to be a down-to-down steadying force, not just the guy who can come up with the heroic plays in the fourth quarter. You also need Cade Bell to take some big steps forward as a game planner and a play caller, and just generally in how he operates and executes his scheme. And so I'll throw some Kool-Aid on it. If you wanted to throw what was your phrase? Not throw Kool-Aid on it. If you had to talk a Kool-Aid drinker down, what would you say? Well, it's just that those questions about the offensive line are still very much question marks that I don't think we have a real definitive answer to, and we won't until they get into the season. And not against Duquesne, not against Central Michigan. You hope you don't get an answer against Duquesne or Central Michigan, because the answer you get against Duquesne or Central Michigan, if you get a definitive answer at all, is going to be a bad one. Because if they play well, we're just going to say, well, it was only Duquesne and Central Michigan. Let's see what they do against Power 4 opponents. If they play poorly, So let's see. Was my reason for optimism the same as my reason to talk down the Kool-Aid drinker? Yes, because that's what this season is all coming down to. And if you want to base your projections or predictions for the season on something, you got to base it on what you think the offensive line and the quarterback are going to do. I'm of the mind that it's not fun to predict like 6-6, 5-7, 4-8. You might as well expect things to break your way. You might as well expect the position group that needs to take a step forward to actually take that step forward. So, I guess I would lean toward the Kool-Aid side on that of expecting the offensive line and the quarterback to be good, but it's very much up in the air. It's very much a question mark heading into next season. So you could choose. You want to believe that they're going to be good and better, then you'll believe the team will be good. If you want to believe that the offensive line is far from a proven commodity, well, you're not wrong, and it certainly allows you to throw throw a wet blanket on the Kool-Aid. How would that work? All right. Big Husky 34 says, for scheduling purposes, should Pitt take a different approach versus the cupcake schedule? Should they focus on trying to play one mid-level Big Ten or SEC school yearly, so if they win, there's a benchmark to compare them to the rest of the conference? For example, trying to play Wisconsin, Maryland, Michigan State yearly, so if they win, it looks good on the resume. No, not in terms of, okay. This has been a big conversation point. I'm going to write about it in the 321 column that you can read a little bit later today on Panther-Lair.com. People have talked about this on the message boards a lot. Yes, they probably should schedule up. They should probably get as many power conference teams into the non-conference as they can. Maybe, at least 2, if not 3 every year. I've come around on this. I used to be a big stacking wins kind of guy. Get an FCS team, 2 group of 5 teams, FBS, but group of 5 teams, and then 1 power conference non-conference opponent every year. Never play more than 1. Sometimes if you want to do it, don't even play 1. Try and get those wins. Try to stack those wins and give yourself a better chance to get to 9 or 10 wins overall every season. But I've come around a little bit on this idea that in the current setup, both in the ACC and nationally, it kind of makes sense to load up your non-conference schedule. Even if you're not going to win those games, it kind of makes sense. Or even if, let's say you have a 80% chance of, or 85% chance or whatever of beating the MAC team on your schedule. They just scheduled a series for 2027 with Western Michigan, or not a series, but a game with Western Michigan, Northern Illinois the next year. So, MAC team, Western Michigan, say you have an 80% chance, 85% chance, 90% chance, whatever it is. Well, if you replace that with Wisconsin, who they have that year, or let's say they add West Virginia instead of Western Michigan or something, your percentage is going to come down, right? You have a lower percentage chance of winning because you're presumably playing a more talented team and all of that. But in 2025 and beyond, you've got a few other elements at play. One is the ACC's revenue structure that's going to prorate the TV payouts based on your TV ratings. And two is the fact, and I think it's a fact, that the most accessible path to the college football playoffs for a program like Pitt and a lot of other schools in the ACC is to win the ACC, which doesn't depend or have any kind of impact whatsoever from what you do in the non-conference. None. You could go 0-4. If you then turn around and go 8-0, you're going to be in the ACC championship game and be 60 minutes away from playing your way into the college football playoffs. So if playing those high-profile power conference, non-conference opponents doesn't lessen your chances of making the playoffs, but it does presumably increase your payout from the ACC, so you get more money without sacrificing any of your opportunity to make the playoffs, that makes the most sense. Don't play Wisconsin, Maryland, and Michigan State because it's going to look better on your resume, because I don't think Pitt is going to find itself all that often to be in position for an at-large bid to the college football playoffs. So don't worry about the resume. Don't worry about how you compare to the rest of the conference or whatever you said there, Big Husky. Just worry about what's going to get the most eyeballs. West Virginia, Penn State, Notre Dame are going to get the most eyeballs on your games. They're going to help you the most in terms of that prorated TV revenue payout. Western Michigan isn't going to draw a lot of eyeballs. UConn is not going to draw a lot of eyeballs. Northern Illinois is not going to draw a lot of eyeballs. Oklahoma State, or Iowa State or something like that, probably a negligible chance or change in the TV ratings. Maybe you do a little bit better by playing a bigger name opponent, but I think you need to be selective, and I think you need to go find those teams that are really going to get people watching so you can get more money, even if it means lessening your chances of winning. So I've come around on that. I'm not 100% committed to it. I still sort of feel like, should try to get those wins, try to get 9-10 wins every year, build something consistent that way. It'll help you with recruiting, help you with fan support and all that kind of thing. Try and build it up, schedule in those wins. But I'm coming around a little bit on the idea of scheduling up. All right, that was the last question from last week. Let's jump into some of the questions from this week here. Pitt4444 says, Chris, do you know if Ja'Karian Turner is injured or has been limited in practices due to being, quote, banged up? Can't really report on injuries. So I can't really say. I know I've seen him at training camp. I would say, it's that midpoint of training camp. A bunch of guys are kind of banged up. You see a bunch of guys riding the bikes on the sideline and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like too many are all that serious. It's just kind of what happens in camp, but I can't speak to Turner or anybody really specifically. He also asks, what is the correct spelling of his nickname, Boozy? And do you know the origin of his nickname? I don't know. I forget if we asked him at some point. For some reason, I feel like Boozy is Boosie. Let me just look real quick. It might be in his Twitter. Yeah, Boosie is how he spells it on his Twitter handle. So we're gonna take Ja'Karian's his spelling of Boozy as the official spelling. NC Panther 99 says, I've been telling Mrs. NC Panther 99 that in order to reduce concussions in football, they should just make better helmets. Why not use the ones they wear in training camp or a variation? I don't know why they don't use those extra cushions that they have. I think the technology of helmets has been and continues to improve year over year. I think they come up with new technology of how to try to cushion the brain or minimize the impact to the brain or the shock to the brain or the movement of the brain or whatever it is inside the helmet. I think it was somebody who said a long time ago, if you want to take hits to the head out of the game, don't wear helmets at all, which is an interesting idea. You're still going to have collisions and guys are going to get hurt. I mean, you see it in 7-on-7 when they wear the little padded things or even before they wore helmets at all. So it would still happen. But I think, they have those things they wear in practice, but I think within the helmet, there are even more technological advances and developments in trying to protect the brain. JY22BS28 says, Chris, there's been a lot of talk about Blue Hicks this training camp. He looks like he's running first team reps. Why did he leave Louisville? Was it NIL, playing time, coaching? I don't think it was NIL. I think it was playing time. Maybe he would say coaching. I want to look at his stats. When we talked to him, in like January or maybe spring camp. I forget what it was, after he arrived as a transfer from Louisville. And he was like, he said something like he knew at halftime of Louisville's bowl game that he was going to go into the portal. And I looked, he had two targets in that bowl game against Washington. He had 2 targets in the regular season finale against Kentucky. His best game, most impactful game, was actually against Pitt. He had 6 targets. He caught all 6 for 63 yards. He only had one other game all season where he had more than 2 targets. Like, looking at the, let me see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games that he was targeted, he had 4 games where he wasn't targeted at all. He had 3 games where he was only targeted once, and 3 games where he was targeted twice. And then he had 4 targets against Stanford the week before the Pitt game, and 6 targets against Pitt. So 19 targets on the season. This is all from Pro Football Focus. 19 targets on the season. 10 out of those 19 came in 2 games. 12 passes. He had 12 catches for 149 yards. 8 of the 12 catches and 80 of the 149 yards came against Stanford and Pitt. And out of the other, let's see, he had 80 out of his 149 were in those 2 games. The other 69 yards, 51 of those other 69 yards was on 1 catch against Jacksonville State. So I think it was just usage. I think he felt like he wasn't being used enough. He wasn't getting enough targets. He wasn't getting enough opportunity. Playing time, he wanted to go somewhere where they would use him and he could play. So that's I think that's what it came down to. And he's going to get that opportunity now. He's going to get a lot of passes thrown his way. Like you said, I think he's running with the first team. I think he's one of the top 3 receivers right now, along with Raphael Williams and Kenny Johnson. And I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. And I think he'll make the most of them. He'll need to be real consistent and run his routes consistently, make good catches consistently. But he's going to be a fixture in this passing offense, I think, in 2025. All right, great questions this week. Great questions that we wrapped up on from last week. Appreciate everybody who contributes to the mailbag, as always. It's just a lot of fun to do these. I like when you guys pick the topics. It makes it easier for me. I spend all week, Monday through Thursday, coming up with things to talk about, and I don't mind it, not complaining, but I like to get to Friday, just relax, let you guys choose what we're going to talk about, and we can, go in those directions. Because sometimes you guys think of things, I'll be honest, sometimes you guys think of things and I'm like, oh, that's a good topic to talk about. And I'll delve into it deeper in an article or a 321 column or a podcast the next week. So shout out to you guys for providing some of the inspiration here in the mailbag. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you won't miss any of our Pitt video content. And then check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, the Pitt site on the 24/7 Sports Network. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Thanks for watching the videos all week. It's been a fun week. We are getting closer to the start of the season. One more week of training camp. They got a scrimmage tomorrow. They'll practice a couple of days next week, and then it is into game week. Getting ready to face Duquesne at Acrisure Stadium. So we've got that to look forward to. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Hope you've had a great week. Have a great weekend, and we will catch up with you on Monday for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.